Addiction doesn't start with pleasure, it starts with escape. Regret is dangerous, my friends, because at first it looks harmless. Just a thought, a little ache, a quiet what-if in the back of the mind. But left alone long enough, that regret starts whispering the same words on repeat. And that's how it becomes an addiction. See, people think addiction is only about substances or habits. No, my friends, the most powerful addiction is emotional, the one that's built on what's missing, the one that starts the moment they realize they can't feel your energy anymore. Hey folks, imagine this. You're a lighthouse on a cliff, steady, shining, unbothered by storms. One ship drifts too far, chasing other lights on the horizon, thinking it'll find something brighter. But when those fake lights fade, when the sea turns dark, they realize the only real light they ever had was yours. So what do? They start sailing back, desperate, addicted to that steady glow they once took for granted. That's how regret turns into obsession. It starts when the mind realizes it can't find your peace anywhere else. People always lie to themselves after they lose something real. They say things like, "I'm fine. I've moved on. I'm better off." But the truth? Regret doesn't scream. It sits like smoke in the lungs. It lingers. It poisons slowly. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Apply that here. You're no longer chasing outside validation. You're mastering your mind while they're becoming a slave to theirs. And here's where it gets darkly funny. They'll laugh loud on social media, post selfies, act like they're glowing. But deep down, they're replaying your conversations like a favorite movie they can't stop watching. Every joke you cracked, every calm look you gave, it's now their daily rerun. That's not missing you. That's addiction disguised as entertainment. My friends, let's break a lie wide open. They didn't fall for you by accident. They got addicted to how your energy made them feel. You were their calm in chaos, their mirror that made them see themselves clearly. But when they lost you, that reflection disappeared. And now they're chasing anyone who'll make them feel the same. But no one can, because you weren't a mirror. You were the truth. And truth, once lost, becomes the hardest drug to quit. Picture this. A singer steps off stage mid-song. The crowd boos for a moment, but then they go quiet. Minutes later, they realize the music was never recorded. It existed only in that moment. That silence eats at them. They crave it back, even though they took it for granted. That's you, the song they can't replay, the peace they can't recreate. Seneca said, "Every guilty person is his own hangman." And isn't that the truth? Their regret doesn't need your punishment. It punishes them naturally. Every scroll, every memory, every moment of fake laughter, it's a reminder of what they lost and can't replace. So, my friends, don't chase what's already chasing itself in circles. You don't need to feed their addiction by breaking your silence. You don't need to prove that you've healed. Because every time you choose peace over reaction, their regret grows louder. Every time you walk calmly through your day, their mind replays the sound of your stillness. Let this sink in. You're not their lesson. You're their withdrawal. You're the calm they can't get back. You're the light they can't look away from, no matter how many fake suns they run toward. So write it in the comments right now. I choose calm. Say it, show it, live it. Because calm isn't boring, it's addictive. And the moment you master it, you'll never be replaceable again. Press that like button, hit subscribe, and stay with me. Because what comes next will open your eyes to the dark psychology of what happens when regret becomes addiction. 1. When missing you becomes a habit. We are not controlled by what we love, but by what we can't let go of. My friends, let's start here, because this is the moment when regret quietly evolves into addiction. At first, they tell themselves it's just a passing thought, just a small memory that surfaces once in a while. But addiction never announces itself with alarms. It starts in whispers. It begins when they catch themselves checking your profile, not because they care how you're doing, but because they can't stand not knowing. They scroll through your old photos like a gambler rewatching a losing bet, hoping the outcome somehow changes this time. They're not looking for closure. They're chasing a fix. Imagine this, folks. It's late. The room's quiet. The lights are dim, and their phone screen glows like a cigarette in the dark. Every swipe, every click, every pause is another drag of your memory. They think they're in control, but what they don't realize is they're hooked. Hooked on the calm you brought. Hooked on the feeling of being seen without performing. Hooked on the way your energy didn't demand attention, it commanded it. That's what they miss. Not you necessarily, but the feeling you gave them. Because people don't get addicted to people. They get addicted to emotions they can't recreate. And now they're learning the hard truth of what you once embodied: consistency. See, when they had you, they confused consistency for predictability. They thought your steady energy was boring. They mistook your calm for complacency. So they went chasing chaos, thinking excitement would replace depth. But here's the dark irony. Chaos burns fast. Peace lasts long. And when their thrill fades, when the chaos dies down, what do they crave most? That quiet steadiness you used to bring. The peace they thought they could live without. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But most people don't realize that until their peace is gone. When you stop showing up, when your energy is no longer there to anchor them, they start spiraling. Their mind becomes their battlefield. The thoughts turn restless. The silence becomes too loud. And that's when the addiction sets in, not to you, but to the absence of you. The void becomes the drug. And here's the funny part. They won't admit it. They'll tell their friends they're fine, that they're focusing on themselves. They'll post quotes about moving on, but behind closed doors, they're pacing in circles, wondering why their chest tightens when your name comes up. That's not strength. That's withdrawal. Because no matter how loud they act, their body knows the truth. The body remembers peace, and once it's tasted it, chaos becomes unbearable. Let's break a lie right here. The lie that says they don't miss you. They do, but not the way you think. They miss the version of themselves they could be when you were around. You see, your calm didn't just comfort them. It exposed them. It showed them their restless patterns. It gave them a glimpse of who they could be if they stopped running. But they weren't ready for that kind of mirror. They weren't ready for real intimacy, the kind that requires self-awareness, not performance. So they left. But leaving didn't cure them. It only made the silence louder. Picture this: a person walking through a desert holding an empty bottle. They left a fresh spring behind because they thought they'd find a better one ahead. But after miles of wandering, their throat burns, the sun scorches, and every mirage fades into dust. That's regret. That's addiction, because the longer they go without that genuine connection, the thirstier they get. They start reaching for every mirage, new people, distractions, validation, but nothing quenches it. Because it's not water they're missing, it's you. And yet, my friends, here's the part that tests you the most. You'll feel it, that invisible pull. The thought that says, maybe I should check on them. The urge to send a text, to show them you're doing fine, to remind them what they lost. But every time you reach out, you interrupt their withdrawal. You become their relief instead of their lesson. And no one learns while they're still being comforted. You must let the silence do the work. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And this is your test, because when you react, you feed the cycle. But when you hold your ground, you teach them what self-control looks like. It's not easy, I know. The heart wants to fix, to prove, to remind. But your silence isn't cruelty, it's medicine, the bitter kind that heals deeper wounds, the kind that forces the other person to look in the mirror and see what they broke. Think of your energy like sunlight. When it's there every day, people forget how much it gives. But the moment it disappears, the cold creeps in. That's what they're feeling now, the chill of their own choices. The emptiness left when your warmth stopped pouring into their chaos. And that's why they're addicted. Not because you're magical or perfect, but because peace is the rarest drug on earth, and you gave it freely. And now, my friends, here's the truth you need to hold on to. Their addiction is not your responsibility. You can't detox someone who keeps reaching for poison. You can't save someone who's still trying to replace you with noise. Your job isn't to fix their regret. Your job is to protect your peace, because the moment you break your silence, you turn their lesson into comfort. And that's not love, that's enablement. But I know, it's difficult. The mind plays tricks. It says, what if they forgot me? What if they've moved on? But let me tell you this, people forget entertainment. They don't forget presence. And you weren't a show, you were a sanctuary. You didn't feed their ego, you fed their soul. And souls remember, always. So, when missing you becomes their habit, when checking your shadow becomes their routine, remember this. You don't need to chase them. You've already become their craving. Your absence speaks louder than your words ever could. Type it in the comments right now. I choose calm. Say it out loud. Show it to yourself. Show it to the world around you, because calm isn't silence, it's strength. Calm isn't retreat, it's mastery. And that calm, my friends, is the very thing they can't quit. Stay with me, because next, we're stepping into something even deeper. The moment when silence stops being peace and starts becoming the mirror they can't escape. That's when regret starts to burn. 2. When silence starts the withdrawal. Silence is not empty, it's full of every truth they tried to ignore. My friends, this is where it gets real. Regret may sting, but withdrawal, that's where it burns. Because silence, when held steady, doesn't just make them miss you, it forces them to face themselves. They thought your silence would feel like victory, a sign that they won, that you gave up, that the game was over. But silence isn't surrender. Silence is reflection. And reflection, my friends, is the one thing the guilty can't stand. Imagine this. They walk into a room that used to echo with noise, your laughter, your messages, your steady reassurance. But now, nothing. Just quiet. They try to fill it with music, with chatter, with distractions, but it doesn't land the same. It's like switching from a symphony to static. Their mind starts pacing, trying to replay your voice, your words, your calm presence. And the more they try to forget, the louder your silence gets. You see, people expect reactions. They expect fireworks, anger, revenge, because reactions feed their ego. It tells them they still matter. It tells them they still control the narrative. But when you go quiet, when you stop explaining, stop proving, stop participating, their brain panics. It's like pulling the plug from a machine that's been running for years. The noise stops, but the echoes remain, and they can't stand the emptiness left behind. Here's the truth that most won't admit. Silence is louder than words because it doesn't argue. It reveals. It holds up a mirror to every selfish decision, every manipulation, every moment they took your peace for granted. And at first, they'll fight it. They'll try to convince themselves you're just playing games. They'll tell themselves you'll come back once you've cooled off. But as the hours turn into days and the days turn into weeks, that confidence begins to fade. That's when the withdrawal starts. Marcus Aurelius said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." But their thoughts now, they're poisoned by uncertainty. Every night before bed, they scroll through their phone, pretending they're fine, pretending the silence doesn't bother them. But when the lights go out, their mind starts talking back. What if they're really done? What if they've finally moved on? What if I wasn't as special as I thought? Those questions hit harder than any text ever could. And here's where it gets ironic, folks. They thought silence would punish you. They thought ignoring you would make you chase. But the human brain is cruel. It flips the script. The one who expected control ends up losing it, because silence creates imagination, and imagination is more powerful than any conversation. When you say nothing, they fill in the blanks. They start wondering if you've met someone else, if you're thriving, if you've already healed. And that's where the addiction deepens. Not to you, but to the mystery of you. Picture a gambler standing at a slot machine, pulling the lever again and again, waiting for the jackpot that never comes. That's them, refreshing your profile, checking your last scene, reading into every tiny sign that maybe, just maybe, you still care. It's not love, it's compulsion, because your silence starves the part of them that once fed on control. But let's be honest, my friends. Holding silence isn't easy for you either. There will be moments where the silence feels unbearable, where you'll want to reach out, just to break the tension. You'll think, maybe if I say something small, I'll ease the pressure. But every time you do that, you give them a hit of comfort, a sip of the peace they lost. And like any addict, once they get a taste, they'll keep coming back. Not for you, but for relief. You deserve more than being someone's temporary escape. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Your silence is your mastery. It's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right. It's about showing the universe that your peace doesn't depend on who stays or who leaves. Because silence, when rooted in peace, is not passive, it's power. It says, I don't need to explain my worth. I live it, and I get it. Your heart still beats fast when you think about them. Your mind still replays moments, still wonders what could have been. But every time you resist the urge to speak, every time you let silence breathe instead of breaking it, you get stronger. They start to feel the imbalance. They start to sense what you've already realized, that peace, once found, can't be unlearned. Think of silence like a storm clearing a forest. It feels violent at first, but when the noise fades, new life begins to grow. That's what's happening in you right now. The withdrawal you both feel, it's transformation. Theirs breeds panic, yours breeds power. So, my friends, remember this. Silence doesn't mean you've lost. Silence means you've learned. You've learned that peace speaks louder than pain, that stillness destroys control, and that strength doesn't always roar, it sometimes just doesn't reply. Type it in the comments right now. I choose silence. Write it, show it, let the world see it. Because silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And the moment you master it, you stop being their echo and become their lesson. Stay with me, because next, we're diving even deeper into the moment when their distractions stop working, when every bit of fake attention turns hollow, and their regret starts to feel like a cage they can't escape. 3. When attention turns empty. You can surround yourself with 100 voices, but the soul still starves for the one that brought peace. My friends, this is where the mask begins to slip. After silence sinks in, they try to drown it with noise. They tell themselves they're fine. They turn up the music, post stories, chase attention, and convince the world and themselves that they're happy. But here's the thing about noise. It's temporary. It's hollow. It doesn't feed the heart, it only distracts it. You can't heal a wound by pretending it's not there. Imagine this. They walk into a crowded room full of laughter, music, and people who don't know their story. For a moment, it feels good. The buzz, the attention, the validation. Every compliment is a shot of dopamine. Every new connection another drink poured over the fire of regret. But then, when the crowd fades, when the laughter dies and the phone battery hits 1%, silence greets them again. And in that silence, the truth waits, still, patient, undefeated. At first, they thought you were replaceable. They thought the world was full of people who could do what you did, understand, listen, bring calm. But connection is not a commodity. You can't buy depth. You can't fake peace. You can't copy presence. People try, of course. They mimic your tone, your kindness, your humor, but replicas never hold the same weight. It's like drinking from a plastic cup when you've already tasted from glass. The mind knows the difference. The heart knows the difference. Seneca said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." That's exactly what happens here. They crave more attention, more validation, more approval, but the more they chase it, the emptier they feel. Because every smile feels rehearsed. Every conversation feels shallow. Every laugh echoes off the walls instead of filling the room. They're surrounded by people, yet they feel alone. That's not loneliness of the body. That's starvation of the soul. You see, folks, when someone loses a real connection, they don't just lose a person, they lose equilibrium. You brought balance, safety, a rhythm. You were the calm to their chaos, the grounding to their impulse, and now, without that, they live off spikes, little hits of attention to numb the void you left. It's not love they're chasing, it's anesthesia. Picture this. A performer on stage, lights blinding, crowd cheering, applause roaring. They bow, smile, wave. It's all perfect. But when the curtain falls, they stand alone in the dressing room, makeup smudged, lights dim, echoing applause fading into silence. And that's when the emptiness hits. That's when they realize applause can't replace authenticity. That's when regret whispers, "You had real once, and you lost it." They'll try to fight it. They'll say, "It's just life." They'll convince themselves the new people around them are enough. But when the noise fades, their mind starts replaying your stillness. The way you looked at them when you didn't need to speak. The peace that existed in your presence without performance. They can't find that now. They can't buy that feeling again. Because presence can't be borrowed. It's earned through connection, trust, and energy. And you gave that freely until they mistook it for something common. Here's the lie they believed. That attention equals worth. That as long as someone's looking at them, they matter. But attention isn't affection. It's a spotlight that burns out. It's a sugar rush. It feels good for a moment, but it crashes hard. And when the crash comes, that's when memory hits like thunder. That's when your face shows up in their mind, not as nostalgia, but as truth. And you, my friends, you'll see it too. You'll notice the posts, the smiles, the forced energy, and a part of you might feel jealous. You'll wonder, are they happier now? But here's the reality. They're chasing attention because they've lost connection. You're not missing out, they are. Because connection, once experienced, makes everything else feel flat. It's like hearing an echo and knowing the real voice is gone. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Their thoughts now are tinted with regret. Every distraction fades faster. Every thrill dies quicker. Because addiction to attention can't compete with the calm of authenticity. And this is your turning point, my friends. You don't compete with noise. You don't prove your value by showing off. You don't need to post, flex, or chase. Because your worth doesn't need an audience. It reveals itself in silence. You hold the kind of depth people only recognize after they've drowned in shallowness. So the next time you see them glowing online, remember, it's not healing, it's hiding. It's the same show for a new crowd, the same play, different stage. But when the lights go down, when the crowd leaves, your memory walks in, uninvited, unshakable. Because what you gave wasn't attention, it was depth. And once someone's had depth, everything else feels like noise. Write it in the comments right now. I choose depth. Say it, show it, live it. Because depth doesn't chase, it attracts. Depth doesn't shout, it resonates. And soon, my friends, they'll realize that too. Stay with me, because next we're stepping into the moment when the memories they tried to bury start fighting back, when their own mind becomes the stage they can't escape. 4. When memories start to sting. You can bury memories, my friends, but you can't silence what the soul remembers. This is where regret stops being something they manage and starts being something that manages them. Up until now, they've tried everything: distractions, new people, noise. But memory has a cruel way of slipping through cracks. It doesn't ask for permission, it just arrives. Sometimes as a scent, sometimes as a song, sometimes as a silence that feels too familiar. And that's when it hits them, the truth they've been running from. You can replace the company, but you can't replace the connection. Picture this, folks. They're out with someone new. The lights are low, music soft, conversation flowing. On paper, it should be perfect. But halfway through a laugh, something twists inside them. The rhythm feels off. The smile feels forced. And suddenly, out of nowhere, they remember you. The way you used to tilt your head when you listened. The way you didn't interrupt, didn't rush, didn't perform. That simple calm that wrapped around them like a blanket. The memory stings, not because they miss you, but because they realize how rare that feeling was. See, here's the cruel part about memory. It doesn't fade when it's tied to peace. Chaos burns out fast, but calmness etches itself into the nervous system. They can't escape it. It lives in their body now. The places you went together feel haunted. The songs that once made them smile now ache. Even random things, a scent, a phrase, a moment on a show, become triggers. Because your energy wasn't just present, it was woven into their routine, and no matter how much they try to pretend otherwise, their body keeps score. Seneca once said, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." But what he didn't say is that some endings never end clean. Some echo. And that echo, my friends, is what keeps them up at night. Because the mind can lie, but the heart remembers the truth. They said they moved on, but every time they hear your name, their chest tightens. They said they're happier now, but every time they see something that reminds them of your calm, their smile fades. They thought time would erase you, but time doesn't erase what was real. It erases the illusion that replaced it. Let's break one of the biggest lies right here. People say time heals all wounds. That's not true. Time only reveals which wounds were self-inflicted and which ones left a scar worth keeping. They're starting to realize that losing you wasn't healing, it was self-sabotage. Because now every quiet moment feels like punishment. Every attempt to move forward feels like walking in circles. They thought leaving you meant freedom, but freedom without peace is just chaos in disguise. Imagine a person deleting all your photos from their phone, thinking it'll help them move on. But one day, weeks later, they open the cloud, and there it is, one picture they forgot to erase. You, smiling, calm, effortless. For a second, they freeze. That calm expression hits harder than any argument, because it reminds them you weren't fighting them, you were loving them. You weren't chasing chaos, you were offering calm. And they threw that away. That's when memory stops being sweet nostalgia and starts becoming pain. Here's what they didn't understand, my friends. Memory doesn't always bring longing. Sometimes it brings accountability. It forces the mind to confront what the ego tried to bury. And when ego and truth collide, it's not peaceful, it's brutal. They start seeing flashbacks, not of the drama, but of the moments they failed to appreciate. The nights you stayed up comforting them, the mornings you still texted good luck after an argument, the calm tone you used when they yelled. These small moments become enormous in hindsight, because now they realize those weren't small gestures. They were proof of love they couldn't reciprocate. And here's where it becomes tragic. They might even start reaching out, sending a casual "hope you're well," or liking an old post, hoping it'll spark something, but you'll see through it. It's not about reconnecting, it's about relief. They're trying to escape the memory that keeps haunting them, because your silence became a mirror, and what they see in that reflection isn't you, it's their mistake. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Their thoughts are soaked in regret now. Every attempt to numb it only makes it louder. Every distraction fades quicker. Every shallow connection feels faker. That's not punishment, my friends. That's truth doing its work. So what do? You stay still. You don't chase. You don't remind. You don't help memory do its job. Because every time you remain silent, every time you keep glowing without gloating, you strengthen the power of their realization. They start to understand the cost of their loss, not because you told them, but because time revealed it. Type it in the comments right now. I choose peace over pain. Say it out loud, write it, show it to yourself, show it to the world around you. Because peace doesn't need to prove itself, it just exists. And the moment you hold that peace long enough, their memories will do all the talking for you. Stay with me, because next, we're going deeper, into the moment when the games stop working, when their control begins to crumble, and they realize they've lost the one power they thought they'd always have: your reaction. 5. When their control starts to crumble. Power built on control always falls apart when the other person stops reacting. My friends, this is where everything flips. Up until now, they thought they were in charge. They believed they could pull back and you'd lean in, go silent and you'd chase, throw mixed signals and you'd decode them like always. It wasn't love, it was control. And control only works if you play along. But when you finally stop reacting, when you stop explaining yourself, stop proving your worth, stop feeding the game, that's when their entire illusion begins to collapse. Picture this: a puppeteer standing on stage, strings in hand, grinning as the puppet dances. The crowd cheers. The performance looks perfect. But then something happens. The strings go slack. The puppet stops moving. The puppeteer tugs harder, yanks again, panicking now. Nothing. The silence in the crowd grows heavy. The smile fades. The power, once so intoxicating, turns into fear. That's them, my friends. That's what happens when your reactions stop feeding their ego. At first, they'll tell themselves you're just playing a trick. They'll wait. They'll test you. Maybe with a random "hey," maybe with a vague post, maybe by flirting with someone new just loud enough for you to see. They're not reaching out to reconnect. They're reaching out to check if they still have the control, if you'll still dance when they pull the strings. But when you don't, when your silence stays calm, when your energy doesn't flinch, something inside them starts to unravel. Because for the first time, they're not leading the dance. You are. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. That's exactly what's happening here. You've stopped trying to control what's outside of you, and that's what makes you untouchable. They can't manipulate what doesn't move. They can't twist what doesn't respond. You've shifted from being predictable to being peaceful, and peace to a manipulator is terrifying. Let's break a lie that most people live by, the lie that silence means weakness. It doesn't. Silence is what exposes weakness. When you stop giving them reactions, you take away their script. They can't play the hero, can't play the victim, can't play the puppet master. Your calm becomes a mirror, and what they see in that mirror isn't you, it's them. Their insecurity, their fear, their emptiness, and that reflection burns. At first, they'll try to convince themselves they don't care. They'll brag, they'll post, they'll pretend to move on. But inside, they're spinning. Because control is a drug, and withdrawal from it is brutal. When someone loses control over another person, they're forced to face the one thing they've avoided their entire life, their own reflection. They start remembering every time you gave them grace, every time you stayed patient, every time you chose peace over chaos. And now that they can't provoke you, they can't escape the guilt of realizing how much they took that for granted. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." They thought freedom was doing whatever they wanted, pushing, pulling, testing, playing. But real freedom isn't control, it's self-control. And you, my friends, have mastered it. You've taken back the only power that ever mattered, the power over your reaction. But I won't lie to you, it's not easy. The silence will tempt you. You'll feel the urge to explain yourself, to prove you've grown, to show that you're fine. But the moment you break the silence, you hand the control right back. Because manipulators don't need your love, they need your attention. That's their fuel. And the moment you stop supplying it, they start running on fumes. Imagine a fire roaring bright because someone keeps tossing logs into it, but one day you stop. The flames sputter, shrink, flicker out. All that's left is smoke, and in that smoke, they see the truth. They were never the fire. They were the wind blowing around yours. And without your energy, their flame doesn't exist. That's why they panic. That's why they test you, because control is only alive when you react. My friends, here's the beauty in all this. You don't have to fight for power. You don't have to prove your worth. You don't have to teach them a lesson. The moment you stop playing their game, they teach it to themselves. They realize that the control they bragged about was never real. It was borrowed from your responses, and you just took it back. So hold your ground, keep your peace. When they poke, don't flinch. When they bait, don't bite. When they reach, don't rush. Stay calm, stay steady, stay focused. Because every day you don't react, their illusion cracks a little more. And when it finally breaks, they'll see the truth. They didn't lose control of you. They lost control of themselves. Type it in the comments right now. I choose control of me. Write it, own it, show it to yourself and to the world around you. Because true power isn't found in manipulation, it's found in mastery. And you've just become the calm they can't command. Stay with me, my friends, because next we're stepping into the stage that cuts the deepest, when they see you growing without them. And that's when regret doesn't just sting, it burns. 6. When they see you growing without them. Nothing hurts the ego more than watching the person they underestimated evolve without their permission. My friends, this is the part no one prepares for, the part that truly burns. Because up until now, their regret was internal, quiet, manageable. They could still tell themselves stories to cope. They'll come back. They're still hurting. They're probably stuck. But then something happens, something that shatters their illusion. They look again and you've changed. You're not broken anymore, you're not waiting, you're not looking back, you're growing. And that's when regret stops being a sting and becomes a full-blown fire they can't put out. At first, they almost can't believe it. They scroll through your profile or hear about you from mutual friends, expecting to see the same old pain, the same version they left behind. But instead, they see light. They see peace. They see you rebuilding, stronger, calmer, sharper. It's confusing, because in their mind, your story was supposed to end when they walked away. You were supposed to crumble, not climb. You were supposed to break, not bloom. And now, seeing you steady, seeing you rise, forces them to realize something brutal. They didn't leave you behind. They left themselves behind. Imagine this, folks. A gardener abandons a plant thinking it won't survive without care. But months later, they return, and it's not just alive, it's thriving. The roots dug deeper, the branches stretched wider, the flowers brighter than ever. They reach out to touch it, but the plant doesn't need their sunlight anymore. It learned to reach for the sky on its own. That's you. You became your own source of growth, your own stability, your own peace. And now they're standing outside your garden, wishing they hadn't walked away from the very thing that could have grown with them. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike the one who hurt you." And that's exactly what your growth represents. Not payback, not pettiness, but progress. Because your evolution exposes what they refused to face. They weren't the source of your peace, they were the obstacle to it. And that realization hits deep. It forces them to see that while they spent their energy proving they were over you, you spent yours becoming untouchable. But let's be honest, my friends, it's not always easy to keep growing when part of you still hurts. Some days you'll want to show off that you're doing better, to prove them wrong. But here's where the real power lies. You don't grow for them, you grow beyond them. You don't post to prove your value, you live in a way that makes your peace undeniable. True growth doesn't scream, it glows. It's in your posture, your tone, your discipline, your energy. It's in how you no longer explain yourself, how you no longer take bait, how you no longer chase closure because you've become your own. Seneca once said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." That heartbreak, that silence, that pain that once felt unbearable, it wasn't punishment, it was polishing. It refined you. It burned away the noise, the dependency, the need for validation. It taught you what real strength feels like, quiet, calm, consistent. And now, when they look at you, they don't just see change, they see transformation. They see the person they once knew has evolved into someone they can't reach, can't manipulate, can't predict. And that's what eats at them, because it's not that they just lost you, they lost access to you. Think about that. They can't pull your strings anymore. They can't provoke your reaction. They can't drain your energy. Your silence used to be a threat. Now it's a boundary. Your distance used to be punishment. Now it's peace. And peace, my friends, is the rarest form of power, because it's not loud, it's undeniable. You see, growth isn't about replacing pain with distraction. It's about turning that pain into purpose. It's about rising so high that even your silence speaks. And the higher you rise, the more they shrink into the story they wrote for you, a story you've outgrown. They'll try to reconnect, but not because they want you back. They want to feel relevant again. They want to borrow a piece of your peace because they can't find their own. Don't give it. You work too hard to build it. My friends, remember this. When someone loses access to your peace, they start craving your presence. When they see your glow, they'll call it luck. When they see your calm, they'll call it coldness. But none of it is luck. None of it is cold. It's mastery. It's the quiet result of choosing yourself again and again until your reflection no longer looks like pain. It looks like purpose. So type it in the comments right now. I choose growth. Say it out loud. Show it to yourself. Show it to the world around you. Because your growth is the loudest message you'll ever send. You don't need to make them regret losing you. You just need to become the person they'll never find again. Stay with me, because next we're stepping into the stage that hits the soul, the moment they realize it wasn't attraction they lost, it was safety. And that, my friends, is the wound that never fully heals. 7. When they feel the irreplaceable safety you once gave. Anyone can give excitement, my friends, but only a few can give peace. And once you lose that, nothing feels safe again. This is where regret stops being emotional and starts being spiritual, because up until now, they've been fighting memories, silence, and their own ego. But now, something deeper begins to ache. The realization that what they lost wasn't just affection. It was safety. And safety, once felt, cannot be replaced. Picture this. They're sitting across from someone new. The setting's perfect. The laughter, the candles, the conversation. Everything looks right, but something feels off. There's tension under the surface, a slight unease that keeps tugging at their chest. They smile, but it feels hollow. They laugh, but it doesn't reach their eyes. And in that quiet gap between the noise, their mind drifts back to you. Not because they want to, but because that's where safety lived. You see, folks, we live in a world obsessed with spark, with chemistry, attraction, thrill, but sparks fade. What people don't talk about enough is the fire that stays steady, the kind that warms you without burning you. That was you. You weren't just passion, you were peace. You weren't chaos, you were calm. And that's what they threw away while chasing noise that could never love them the same way. Marcus Aurelius once said, "He who lives in harmony with himself lives in harmony with the universe." You were their harmony, even if they never admitted it. You were the one who didn't demand, who didn't rush, who didn't need to win the argument just to feel seen. Your presence was a shelter, the quiet they didn't know they needed until they stepped out into the storm. And now, that storm is their new normal. Let's break a lie that keeps so many people stuck, the lie that safety is boring, that peace is dull, that chaos means passion. No, my friends, chaos only feels alive when you're addicted to instability. But once someone's had real safety, their nervous system remembers it. Their body knows the difference between tension and peace, between noise and connection, between surviving and being understood. And that's what's haunting them now, because every new face feels unfamiliar. Every hug feels different. Every "I love you" feels rehearsed. They keep waiting to feel that feeling again, the feeling of exhaling around you, the feeling of being home. But they can't, because home isn't a place, it's a person who made your soul stop running. Imagine a traveler moving from city to city, staying in fancy hotels. The beds are softer, the lights brighter, the walls cleaner. But something's missing. The warmth, the smell of familiarity, the peace of knowing you don't have to perform. That's what they've lost. They traded home for hotels, and now, no matter where they go, they never really rest. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." They wasted peace chasing pleasure. They mistook excitement for love. And time, my friends, is now revealing that truth. Because safety is something you only understand in its absence. When you lose it, everything else feels temporary. You can distract yourself for a while, but when night comes and the world gets quiet, your soul always drifts toward what felt real. And here's the tricky part. They might try to reach out again, not out of love, but out of nostalgia. They'll test the waters with soft words, pretending they just want to check on you. But what they're really doing is trying to see if your light is still on. They're not looking for love, they're looking for refuge. Because the world outside you is loud, unpredictable, unstable. You were the one constant in a life full of chaos. But here's where your strength must hold. You are not their shelter anymore. You can forgive, but you can't rebuild the same house they burned down. You can show compassion, but you don't have to hand them the keys, because your peace, once rebuilt, isn't up for rent. You didn't go through all that pain just to return to the fire. Think of yourself like a lighthouse again. The ships see your light and remember how safe it felt to navigate by it. But the lighthouse doesn't move. It doesn't chase. It doesn't dim itself for anyone who took the light for granted. It just stands, steady, shining, knowing that those who once ignored it now steer their lives by its glow. So, my friends, remember this: safety is sacred. It's not something you beg someone to value, it's something you become for yourself. You were their peace, and now you are your own, and that's what makes you unshakable. Type it in the comments right now. I choose peace as my safety. Say it, write it, show it to yourself, show it to the world around you. Because peace is not passive, it's power. It's the most magnetic energy you'll ever carry. Stay with me, because next, we're stepping into the final transformation, the moment when your detachment stops being silence and starts being respect. That's when regret turns into reverence and your calm becomes their lesson.